In this video, we will discuss line work code sets. If you would like to follow along with this video, please open the file 0405 lineworkcodesets.dwg located in the training folder as discussed in the Working with this Dataset video. Line work code sets add additional functionality to automate line work creation. Line work code sets will interpret field codes entered from surveyors into figures in the survey database. Line work code sets are displayed in the tool space under the Survey tab in the Line work code sets category. Before we continue on, let's just verify some settings for this section of the course to work properly. Let's go ahead and navigate to the Survey User Settings. First, let's make sure that the line work processing defaults are set to the default folder location as defined by Civil3d. I'm using Windows 7, and so this is C Program Data, Autodesk, C3D 2013, ENU, Survey. Make sure you have the sample line work code set defined. Then for figures, make sure that you have this set to the Civil3d Projects, Learning AutoCAD Civil3d Infinite Skills Survey folder. I'll click this Browse button to show you where this is located. As mentioned before, please, before you change the path to the figure prefix database to the dataset location, make sure that you make note of your location before changing it. That way you can change it back to that location, as it probably has your company's standard location for survey information. Also note, a user setting file has been provided to you, and you can import those settings files from the same folder as defined here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what a line work code set is. In the line work code sets collection, I can either create a new one by right-clicking on here, or I can take this one and copy it. Let's just go ahead and edit this and see what it looks like inside. So the whole purpose of the line work code sets is to define what the coding methods and special codes are for different parts of survey. So you'll see here that I can tell within that text file when I import a file what I want a comment to be. I can also tell it what special codes should be for begin, continue, and end figures, along with any line segment codes like recalling a point, connecting a point, defining a rectangle, right turn angles, or extending a line. There's also curve segment codes for begin, end, curve, and defining circular points. We will examine many of these here to show you exactly how they work and how you can actually tell your surveyors, if they don't already know this, to use these line work codes in their everyday survey to help automate the procedure for figures. So to begin, let's go ahead and create a brand new survey database that we can play around with. I'm going to right-click on Survey Databases and select New from the shortcut menu, and we'll call this one Playing with Line Work. This will open it up for editing. So let's go ahead and import 3 files and see what's in each of those text files and see the true power of line work code sets. I'm going to right-click on Import Events and go to Import Survey Data. I already have this database selected, so I can click Next. We want the point file as the data source type. And I'll navigate to the Civil3d Projects, Learning AutoCAD Civil3d Infinite Skills Survey folder, and make sure your files of type is set to .txt. There are 3 files, one to show a building example, one to show curving example, and one for templating. I'll select all 3 by just doing a window selection and click Open. This will create 3 separate import events, allowing me to manage 3 separate text files. I'll make sure that my point file format is set to PNEZD, and you can also verify this on the bottom preview. Click Next. I do not need a network, as these are simply points. Click Next again. And in the import options, you can change some of the settings you've defined in previous windows. But also, let's just make sure that we verify that we have Infinite Skills as our figure prefix database. Make sure you have Process Line Work turned on. Make sure you're using the sample line work code set. You have also a few options as far as how it processes the line works and in what sequence. And you have the 2 methods you would expect to have by the import order. So in other words, it doesn't matter what the point number is, it just does it in the order in which it exists in the file, or by the point number. Let's just set it to import order. You can give it a description, so I've just given one called sample line work code set. Do you want to assign offsets to point identifiers? So if you already had points with the same exact numbers in these text files in this current DWG, you could offset those points with, let's say, 1,000 or 2,000. It would prefix them with that point offset identifier. For now, we'll just leave it set to no, and I'll just toggle on Insert Figure Objects and Insert Survey Points, and we will click Finish. And just like that, I now have 3 import events, as you can see here. So let's go ahead and look at the first one, which is building.txt. I'm going to right-click on this and select Zoom to. And just like that, it zooms to the building.txt. Now, as we look at our points, we notice that these are building corners, but in the end, I actually want to close this building. So what the surveyors could have done was actually enter the line work code set CLS, because that's what's defined in the line work code set in this one here, and it would close that building automatically. So I'm going to open that file right from within Civil3d. I will right-click on building.txt and go to Properties. There's a little magnifying glass here that allows me to open this file. It also will point to the file as well, telling you where the file is located. If I click on that, in the background, it has now opened up this text file. And all that I have to do is simply do a space, because it's all space delimited, and all caps type in CLS. I will save this file, close it, click Cancel on this, and simply re-import the file using the default settings, click OK, and I do want to overwrite the duplicate and apply all duplicate point numbers to this because I don't need any offset of those. And notice how it automatically will close that building. That's pretty cool, right? So one less thing you have to edit in your survey database. Let's go ahead and look at this curving.txt. So before I look at it in the file, let's go ahead and open that file as well. I'll close this out, and let's look at my file. So as we look at the points, there are a couple of code sets going on here. This first one is my favorite. It's called OC, which is on curve. So what you'll notice here is I do not have any, and I mean absolutely anywhere where it's defined as PC, BC, EC, etc. before this curve. I do, however, have it afterwards, okay? And here's some other functionality going on, is that I simply have a begin curve and an end curve, and it automatically will calculate out the rest of the curve information in between. In the past, you used to have to code this as multi-curve points, but now you no longer need to do that. So I'm just going to close this file, and let's go ahead and view what's going on. So here's that first point. As you can see, there's no begin curve here. This simply exists here, and it automatically will fit that curve in there for me, which is just fantastic. This next one is begin curve, right there, as you can see the BC. And then the rest of these here are points on the curve until it gets the EC, which is right here. Notice how it automatically, geometrically placed a reverse curve in there for me. So that is just some really cool functionality. It just fits the curve based on all these points. It's basically using something called regression analysis. Let's look at this last one here called templating. I'll go to Properties and we'll browse to that file. Imagine you're the surveyor and you have to locate a very urban setting, and you have bottom of curb, top of curb, back of curb, sidewalk, etc. So for the most part, if you could just simply locate the bottom of curb or the back of curb, the rest of the features that you would need to offset, like back of sidewalk, would pretty much be the same standard template. And that's what this is doing here. I even have a begin curve as well in here. And so using the H codes and the V codes, I can define horizontal and vertical offsets. So what this is doing by this one point, it defines a horizontal and vertical. Imagine it drawing a cross-sectional view of the curb and the back of sidewalk. That's what's going on here. So from this point, draw this cross-section. From this point, draw this cross-section. OC, draw that cross-section. EC, end curve. Draw this cross-section, and lastly, I have this one here. So let's go ahead and look at what this one does. I'm going to actually expand the templating, and you'll notice that even though that only has 4 points in it, I will automatically get 5 figures, because what happens is, if we look at this here, I'm basically starting all from this point here, and I have defined, this is my TBC, the rest of these offsets for the rest of these figures. This is just really great functionality. So watch what I'll do here. I'm going to go ahead and just do a shift middle click to rotate my view in 3D, and this will automatically show me what I've basically done here. So if I rotate the view a little bit better here, you can see that in 3D, or in 3 dimensions, right, I have defined a cross-sectional view of this set of figures. So starting from this point, it drew the back of sidewalk and the rest of the curb and gutter. Just really powerful functionality. Again, you can tell your surveyors that you have this functionality, tell them the codes they have to type in, and it will automatically draw in these templates. And it basically gives the name of the figures TBC1, which was the name of the original figure, .1, .2, .3, and .4, and it still keeps them with all the same figure styles that have been defined. This concludes this video discussing line work code sets.